Welcome back to the Loco Experience podcast. I'm here today with Cameron Singh. And Cameron is a leadership coach and author and a partner in the TC Advisory Group. And he brought me a book, which is super cool. Are you going to sign it for me?
Yes, I will. Yeah, I forgot to sign it.
Yeah, you asked me to say what my first question was, and that was the first question that popped into my head. So we'll get you a pen right after. So why don't we just start with a quick description of TC Advisory Group?
Yeah, so TC Advisor Group is a leadership training and development company that we started earlier this year,
Okay.
and partnered with some other folks that we had mutual interest and passion in leadership,
Okay.
and we're all from the aviation industry.
Yeah.
But our leadership that we do is applicable really into any industry, any organization. So we provide leadership training and coaching at all levels of the organization,
Mm-hmm.
and we provide that both on an organizational level, team level, department level, or on an individual level.
Is this your toolkit that you've developed over time as in your career in aviation plus other things, or what's the format? Or
Yeah, so the partners in the business, we're all Maxwell certified
Hmm,
coaches,
okay,
speakers, and trainers.
yep,
So a lot of the tools the foundation of everything that we do is from there.
yeah,
But we also intertwine that with our personal
yeah,
experiences
yeah,
in leadership.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, and you were introduced to me as the something something airport guy
Yeah.
with the Water Valley Company, and that's a new change
Yeah.
just last week that you're out of the nest of a corporate day job and a fledgling, fully self-employed person.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Congratulations.
pretty exciting times. I'm actually looking forward to what's to come in terms of being self-employed and really enhancing and expanding my own personal ventures.
Yeah. There was a season when I was both a financial advisor with Thrivent Financial and Loco Think Tank was growing on the side. We had, 3 chapters. We're working toward getting a fourth. And my friend John Shaw from Da Vinci Science said, which one thing are you going to be the best in the world at, Curt? And I was like, well, Thrivent Financial guy with a thriving side business of Loco Think Tanks. And he's
Hmm.
like, I'm just not sure for most people if it really we're not all Elon Musk.
Hmm.
And so I think you made the right move based on the passion I heard in your tone. And so tell me about the book just a little bit. What's the foundation there? And it's your journey, is that right? It's kind of semi-biographical of sorts?
Sort of, yeah. Well, I've been always wanting to. So the book is called Navigation and Discovery: A Path of Navigating and Discovering Through a Journey of Faith, and I've had the pleasure of experiencing um, leadership roles at a very young age. I had the privilege of having experiences living around the world, and aviation has really taken me so many different places, so many different experiences, a lot of chaos, a lot of change,
Hmm.
and it has both affected me both professionally and personally. And it was on my heart really to share my story and journey. And so this book really covers a little bit of myself growing up, how that was. I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
How my interest developed into aviation, and also my experience in high school and through college, and how I navigated through those
Hmm.
years to figure out what exactly I wanted to do, and how faith was a journey of that, because that's a huge part of my life growing up, and and yeah.
So is this like intended to be for others to also help guide their path, even though they might not be getting into the aviation industry?
Exactly. It's more so to equip people with the tools, saying, "Hey, this is my story. I hope you learn from my challenges and my struggles, my
Yeah.
mistakes, my failures." Because I talk a little bit about as I entered the workforce of how challenging it was finding my way within the industry, within the company that I was with, and how do you stand out?
Hmm.
The different things that I learned over time to
Usually when you look back on them.
right, and then to position myself for growth and the trajectory of growth. And I try to put it as authentic as possible, this story. It's not sugarcoating, it's not beating around the bush. It's like, hey, I made this mistake. This is how it was.
Hmm.
This is what was going through my mind. This is how it affected me personally. So I talk about a few times how I faced burnout
Hmm.
at, you know, at 21, at 22.
Did you return to some of the concepts in that book as you were evaluating your potential departure from a steady paycheck?
Yeah, actually, I'm writing my second book right now,
Okay.
and that's where it truly came forth. Is when
Mm,
I started talking, because the second book that I'm working on, it talks a lot about my first years in leadership and my years being a middle manager and being in aviation and how that experience was. And I realized, going through the process of writing this first book and the second one, and being partnered with this leadership company, that's what I truly want to do long term.
mm.
Aviation, don't get me wrong, it was a very rewarding career journey, and I'm not leaving the aviation industry, but instead I'm going to give back to the industry with, giving my lessons learned through my personal story, and then going back and providing training and leadership training and development and coaching within the aviation industry as
Yeah.
well.
When you like leadership is such a big word,
Hmm.
right? Like what's your definition of leadership? Let's start there.
I'd say leadership. I actually just had a conversation this morning on it. Leadership, I know it's very cliche, but leadership doesn't mean that you need to have a leadership title. You're able to lead wherever you're at, no matter what your role is, no matter if you have a job, and you're able to have that influence and leadership in everything that you do on a day-to-day basis.
Hmm.
Whether you're a family person, whether you're a community member, church member, within your organization, you have the power to lead in really any sphere.
Hmm.
That
Yeah, and what
that
I'm hearing there is leading yourself is one of the first and foremost foundations there. I there was a coach one time that did a workshop that I've repeated a lot, that
Yeah.
leadership is anything that anybody does that influences the behavior of somebody else.
Hmm.
And that felt very second person-y kind of.
Hmm.
But now when I process it a little bit, it's like, well, if I show poor personal leadership habits as a leader with actual people that report to me and stuff, my behavior is influencing other people, even though it
Yeah.
might not be by my intention.
Yeah. I think I found that a bit too late.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, we learned things. What would you say on the Maxwell front? What's that? I've heard of Maxwell. I haven't experienced it. You were encouraging me to, you should get yourself some skills
Hmm.
up leveled there. What's got you so passionate about their program and network, and how has that impacted you? Why were you introduced to it?
Yeah. What I really like is John Maxwell's character. I was very much attracted to the way he writes, the way he speaks, and I really wanted in the way that he talks to people, and he's able to attract such an audience from, because he's a believer, but he attracts people from all different walks of
Right.
life and all different ages, and from your 16-year-old all the way to person that is reaching 100 to pursue Maxwell coaching and training.
Interesting.
And I was just inspired because when I was moving up in the aviation industry in my first leadership roles, I didn't know what leadership was. And that's why I went and studied it, because I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not prepared for it. I want to go learn what leadership is all about.
Hmm.
So that is actually stemmed out of studying leadership and going to pursue it a little bit further. It's like
Hmm.
I learned all this stuff, but
Yeah.
what am I going to do to add to society? What am I going to do to add to the body of knowledge of leadership? And so this book is an example of this. And it
Hmm.
was actually through encountering through a very close friend of John Maxwell, Dr. Sam Chand, who is a publisher and helps publish books and is focused on getting the message out. And he's also a leadership guru. And so just being in close proximity to those two individuals made me want to do the same, and really for the next generation is
Yeah.
bringing along the next generation behind me, because leadership is not easy.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think there's some kind of an impression among youth that leadership is like something that old people do or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's
Like they want to lead
yeah.
themselves, I think a lot, but there's a lot of lone wolfiness out there in terms of like personalities and things maybe.
Yeah, it's a different world, and nowadays, and like my younger sister, she's in a different generation,
Yeah.
and just seeing how different that the younger, meaning I'm a millennial, so then, what's the generation after Gen Z?
Yeah, yeah.
Seeing how they're so different in terms of their loyalty to organizations,
Right.
I think a lot of people I've seen are more towards being an entrepreneur and starting their own business,
Yeah.
and
Even if that means freelancer or things like
exactly,
that. Yeah.
and going out and living life to the fullest.
Yeah.
And I think that's where,
Digital nomads, etc.
right, yeah, and I think that's where society seems to be leading, especially the younger generations,
Hmm.
but not realizing. I think a lot of them go in that direction because they realize, because of their circumstances, they might not be able to um, pursue leadership or even
Right.
think leadership
Yeah.
is possible.
Well, and for a lot of people, education seems to be a part of that, and colleges are increasingly out of reach for a lot of families' kids. Even with some pretty good financial aid and things like that, even if it's a lot of loans, people are like, I just don't know if I want to have 200,000 in loans when I get done with my
Hmm.
economics degree.
Yeah.
So, and then they start to worry, well, is leadership out of reach?
Hmm.
I feel like we might as well like unfold this story as a story should unfold, which is from the beginning.
Hmm.
Tell me about your kindergarten class. Were you in San Francisco already?
Yeah. Yeah.
Born and raised?
Born and raised in San Francisco. So kindergarten, Bel Air Elementary School.
Okay.
We'll never forget it. It was in actually the small town that I grew up in is San Bruno.
Okay.
And
Which is where from the city? I was just there last spring.
it's actually right next to the airport.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. The airplanes take off right over our city,
Yeah. Yeah.
going out to the west. And kindergarten, I remember first day, I cried. I didn't want to let go of my parents, but I met so many great friends that went to elementary school with. Really loved it, and it was a joy
Yeah.
to just be in a great community. And like a lot of those people, I still am in touch with, like on Facebook and
Really?
stuff like
That's
that.
cool.
Get to watch their growth and
Do
stuff.
you did you have older brothers or sisters or anything to
No,
inform your?
I have a younger sister who's
Okay.
6 years younger than me.
So you were the guide in that space. So,
Hmm.
what kind of a kid do you think you were in those days? Like, were you very studious? Were you a charmer?
Yeah,
You seem like a pretty charming
I
young
was
man.
more of a I have a it was weird because I think I was more of a nerd and a
Okay.
mix of a charmer at the same time.
All right.
So I had these like Harry Potter glasses. I had these Harry Potter glasses, which made me look really, really smart.
Right.
And
And cute, I'm sure.
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, you seem like a teacher's pet kind of one. Not by
Yeah,
not by your efforts necessarily, but
yeah.
just by your character.
I was a teacher's pet. I was always the teacher's favorite, and student council president and stuff like that.
Fair enough.
So
Yeah, talk to me about that journey. Were you that's high school obviously. Was there athletics involved? Was there business things? Like what was the nature of your school journey?
yeah, so in middle school, I got involved with golf.
Oh,
Picked up actually the wrong set of clubs from, I think it was like I was walking my grandpa down the street on a walk, and we found a set of golf clubs that said free.
yeah.
And it was right-handed golf clubs, but I'm left-handed. It took me like 2 years to figure out that you're supposed to. There's a different way for left-handers or left-handed
Yeah,
people.
you saw somebody playing left-handed, you're like, "Oh, wait a second. I
Yeah.
write with my left."
Yep. Yeah. Played a little baseball too in
Oh,
junior
right on.
high,
Cool.
and then I played varsity golf for all 4 years in
Wow.
high school, and went through that. And
What was your best handicap?
I never kept track of it.
Yeah.
To be honest, after college, I never kept track of it, nor do I know what my handicap was then.
Interesting. What was your family dynamic? Were your folks tech workers? Were they entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so my parents, they immigrated from Fiji.
Oh, from Fiji.
Fiji in the
Interesting.
Pacific Islands.
Okay.
But our heritage is actually Indian. So
Oh, interesting.
my great grandfather is from India.
Interesting.
And so they immigrated here when they were in their late teens. And
So did they have were they I guess adapted to the Fiji culture and
Yeah,
stuff? They were
yes.
speaking Fijian and
Yep,
whatever
they're-
instead of Indian, or maybe they carried both a little
yeah,
bit.
they had the little dialect with like
Yeah.
Fijian and Indian.
Fijian,
Yeah, exactly.
something like that. A little
Findian.
Spanglish
Yeah.
version of Fijian Indian.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Is
so
that common? Is Fiji have a heavy Indian subpopulation?
it's very common because what happened years ago, I actually did the ancestry DNA thing to
Yeah,
figure
yeah.
out a little bit of the history. So when when Fiji was under the British, same thing as India,
Right.
they brought slaves from India to Fiji to help with the sugarcane
Mm-hmm.
because Fiji is very big on sugarcane and farming, and
Right.
so they needed people to work.
Right.
So my grandparents were
And the
my
pesky diseases killed off so many of the native Fijians that they needed
exactly.
to import some more labor.
So my great
I hate to say
grandparents
that, but yeah.
were brought over on a boat from
Interesting.
India.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, as slaves to
as
Fiji.
slaves. Yep.
Well,
Yep.
and then, like, did they have an independence movement
Yeah.
too then?
And then once
After World
India
War II,
was
probably, when British
independent,
was like, meh.
yeah, then Fiji became independent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know anything about it except for I want to go, like, based on the pictures, for sure.
Yeah, it's a beautiful island.
You've been, I
Yeah,
guess, a few
been
times.
yeah, a few times.
Cool. So where did we jump off? Oh, so they
Yeah,
were,
yeah.
yeah.
So we really grew up as a very very close family. It was the four of us: my
Mm-hmm.
mom, my dad, my sister. She's 6 years younger than I, and then we grew up very close to my mom's parents, which would be my what do you call that? The maternal
Yeah, yeah,
grandparents.
yep.
Yeah, so it was about six of us,
So you
and
spent a lot of time with them
spent a lot
too.
of time with them growing up. And so it was really the six of us growing up
Yeah.
and very, very close, very, very open. I would say we were kind of the non traditional Indian family.
Hmm.
My parents, they always spoke English. They were very modernized, and I think it was because they came here so early
Mm-hmm.
in their like teens.
Yeah.
So they experienced the U.S.
Yeah,
very differently,
for sure.
and
Interesting.
they really took on the culture, and they wanted us to also live the American dream and be modernized and not really stuck in the, I guess, the Indian culture and traditions that there
Right, and
are.
when all the castings and things like that, like you couldn't be
Exactly.
burdened by that. Or I, we've talked a little bit about faith previously, but was coming to a Christian faith part of their journey, or was that previous to their?
Exactly. So that was a part of their journey through
Yeah.
really my mom. She became a believer early on in her grade school back in Fiji, and
Wow.
so it stemmed a lot of from that because traditionally, a traditional Indian would be someone of Hindu descent, so a lot of the values and culture and traditions come from that religion,
Yeah.
and so we didn't necessarily grow up with that,
Yeah.
and so we grew up with going to church and different ideals, different beliefs,
Yeah.
and
You'd almost subscribe to the notion that you feel a closer kinship to a white Christian fellow like me
exactly.
than somebody from India necessarily.
Hmm.
That's not of that perspective.
Yeah, yeah, and
Interesting.
it was really awesome and being raised we were still raised with a lot of great values and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what I experienced in today is and a lot of
The seeds were planted
this
25
the
years
seeds
ago,
yeah the
or
seeds were
35,
yeah the
whatever.
seeds were planted
How
years
old are
ago.
you, by the way?
uh
You're not Tay?
oh 30
You're
30
30 now?
30 yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I
Yeah.
forget sometimes.
Yeah. It's not that relevant
Yeah.
necessarily, but it seems like based on our conversations that
Yeah.
you're younger than I might have imagined.
Hmm.
Uh, so you're getting close to the end of high school.
Yeah.
Got good grades, scholarships, anything like that? Was there anything that
um
was you were focused on?
I'll take it back a little bit. So
Sure.
growing up at the airport,
Yeah.
by the airport, San Francisco
Oh yeah.
airport, out of my bedroom window, I saw all the jumbo jets taking off
Nice.
over to the Pacific Ocean, and
Probably don't even hear them.
no, it became like
I lived by the railroad tracks,
yeah,
kind
it
of.
became so normal,
People are like, "Do you hear the trains?" I'm like, "I haven't heard a train in 10 years."
and so on the weekends, we used to go and watch the airplanes on the waterfront, and
Cool.
do picnics and stuff like that. And this was when my sister wasn't in the picture, and so really, I've always
Oh
been
wow.
intrigued with aviation,
Yeah.
and we had a local airport nearby where they had a museum, so we used to go there often.
Hmm.
And when it came to high school, I joined this class called Avid, where they help you. It's like a college prep course, and where they help you prepare for college
Yeah.
and start
See
thinking
where
about
you should aim
college. And
yourself when you get there and all that.
I was like, oh, I want to become a pilot. I want to
Oh.
become a pilot, fly for United, just like the airplanes, flying over the house. And so that was going to be my original route.
Yeah.
I guess in high school I was an okay student. Um, it was it was hard trying to figure out what I actually wanted to do because I
Okay.
found that becoming a pilot, the flight training was super expensive back then.
Mm.
It still is today.
Yeah, yeah.
The demand was different then back then than it is today as
Right. I
well.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to
There
do?
was airlines laying off pilots and
Yeah, they
stuff
were
in those
laying
days.
off, and so it was quite the journey to try to figure out what I really wanted to do in high school. And not just that, but figuring out where I wanted to go in terms of school.
Yeah. So, where did that settle in then?
Um, yeah, so
So you took the you're winding up with high school. Did you
oh
go
yeah.
to a join an airport or something like that, or
Oh
did you
yeah.
go to school at the same time? Or
So what I ended up doing is I took a discovery flight. I think in the in when I was a junior in high school,
okay,
and so I really loved the flight. Really loved the flying, and I
that
was
was
like,
part of this Avid program
yeah,
thing
yeah,
or
that was
something.
part of that Avid program. Took a flight and really loved it, but realized that it might not be something that I could actually pursue due to the cost because
Right.
you put the cost of tuition
Start learning some things, and you're like, ooh,
on top of flight training, and I knew there were other opportunities like air traffic control. So I was learning all the other stuff that you could do, like airport manager, and there's other aviation career paths. And I only knew like the commercial side, which is the airline stuff, and you could go work for an airline and stuff like that.
sure.
And so I finished high school, and I also was going to my local community college at the same time.
Oh,
So I was doing a little bit of
get some
both.
credits. Yep.
Yeah, so I graduated high school with my diploma and also my AA.
Oh wow.
So I was already had 2 years of GE general education under my
Yeah.
belt. So that was
Well, it
great.
sounds like you had some pretty good focused student time. You're downplaying your
Yeah.
work a little bit when you had an aim. Then it was get after it.
Yeah. Well, the only reason why I did that because I was terrible at the AP courses. I failed like every AP course.
Oh really?
No, yeah, but I did well in the community
We
college.
didn't have that where I grew up.
Yeah.
They just had classes.
Yeah. Where were we? So
So
yeah,
just yeah.
yeah. So then I went to San Jose State University, which is the
Okay.
only public university in California that offers aviation.
Oh
And so that was going to be the most like cost effective for us as a family because thankfully I was kind of privileged that my parents paid for school
okay.
for my undergrad, which was great. It was a blessing. They had me live on campus, which was even better.
Oh wow.
Even though it was just an hour away,
Yeah.
it was nice. I got to experience the freedoms of
For sure.
life.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Any stumbles or loneliness or things like that, or was it
oh,
easy for you?
I was more looking forward to the next thing,
Yeah,
moving out of the house. Of course, it's not easy
yeah,
when you're sheltered, under care of my parents,
yeah.
my grandparents. So,
I was like, I was scared because I was from such a small town, but
yeah.
after like a week, I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then after like a year and a half, I was under like suspension almost on my grades and stuff, and I got
Yeah.
a DUI, and I had to turn it around. And I was like, oh, I maybe shouldn't have taken quite so much advantage of my freedom there.
Yeah, so that's what I did. I took advantage of the freedom that I had, and I experienced really all the worldly pleasures there is to offer in college.
Yeah.
And am I going too fast?
No.
Okay, and then I ended up my first semester being on academic
Oh,
probation.
so your story
So
wasn't that much different than mine.
no, my GPA was a 1.2, and guess where the letter got sent to? Home.
Yeah, 2.13
Yeah,
was my GPA after a year and a half. But
yeah. So pretty much
so what happened?
the letter said if you don't really fix it in the next semester,
Yeah,
or I think it was within a year, you get pretty much kicked out if I
yeah,
don't pull up my GPA over 2.0.
yeah.
And because it was really hard. Not only
The course was
the
hard.
course was hard because remember I had 2 years of general education under my belt, so
Mm.
I went in taking
Oh, right,
all the major courses. So
right.
I was taking
And your
like
community college credits transferred, but they
yep,
didn't really prepare you like they
no,
might have.
like I was taking like two science classes and one math class, and I'm not a math and science guy. And so I failed like every of one of those
Mm.
courses. Failed in accounting, failed in finance.
Really?
Yeah, it was like all
Well, this is good. Like, this is good inspiration. Like, don't
yeah,
fail, kids. Like, work hard and
yeah,
whatever, but also recognize that if you fail here and there, that doesn't mean you're a failure.
yeah,
It's one of the important things to learn in life.
yeah. So that was really hard to kind of my parents getting the letter
They
and
freak it out.
trying to explain. I was like, it's really, really hard.
And what was their response to that?
They were understanding.
Really?
Surprisingly,
Okay, good.
I was actually surprised with their reaction because I thought they would be upset, but they realized it was my first time out of the home, and
Yeah,
it's hard, not only on the personal side but also like education wise.
yeah,
They realized I was taking difficult courses, and they were always supportive,
yeah.
no
Cool.
matter if I did good or bad. Like that's the one thing I have to say is that they're always
That's
always
cool.
supportive.
Did you turn it around?
Yeah, I did turn it around. It wasn't easy because I had to change my habits a little bit. I had to. The library was my second home.
Yeah, instead of the
Yeah,
the bar
yeah. So like living in the dorms is really hard to
or the
study.
dorms, right?
Yeah, and we had a very friendly environment too. Like everyone on our floor knew each other.
Yeah,
I loved my floor mates, and we were all good buddies.
right. And
And
you can't always play foosball if you want to pass
no,
accounting.
no. So when they're hanging out in the room playing video games at like 9 at night, there's no way of studying it. So
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in the library and really getting focused. And the next semester I did a little bit better, but it wasn't quite there yet. I think I really turned it around sophomore year,
Okay.
and I think that's when I was able to center myself even in my faith again.
Mm.
Really find myself, who am I is as a believer, where's my relationship with God? And that had a lot to do with me really turning it
Hmm.
around, and finishing strong,
Yeah.
and really focusing on after college. Because when it came to my second year of college, I realized I was almost done.
Right.
Uh, and I was like, what am I going to do after? I got to figure it out. And so that really helped me
Kind of set your focus.
set my focus and behave.
Yeah, fair, fair. And was that like a general aviation degree then, or what was it that you
Yeah,
completed?
it was aviation with a emphasis in like operations.
Okay,
So focused a little bit on the operations side.
sure.
It was very broad. Learned a lot in
Yeah,
that program, and gained a lot of good contacts and network. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So what was that next step in your journey then?
The next step. So it was my last semester of college. You take your senior capstone course,
Yeah,
and it's
pretty
time.
much easy stuff and
Yeah,
whatever.
you get senioritis and stuff, and figure out. I need to try to figure out what I'm going to do.
Right.
So, one of my professors, Victoria Cullum, Professor Cullum, she was teaching a class, and she was involved in this local aviation group. They used to have networking luncheons every month actually, and she always encouraged her students to go. And
Hmm.
so I was like, I need to meet people, so I'll show up. And oftentimes I was the only one that showed up,
Only student.
only student that showed up. So I just kept coming and going to these luncheons. Then they needed some help with like they need some volunteers to help with like audio, video, and
Teacher's
like
pet kind of stuff.
teacher's pet kind of stuff. I was like, oh, I fit well in that. Help people check in.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll do that. So I got involved and started to meet more people, and actually became a board member for this organization. And that's how I encountered my first job
Oh,
in the industry. Was I met one of the local managers of what's called a FBO, which is a fixed base operator,
okay.
where they handle private aircraft.
Oh,
And
and just that, no airlines come in or out kind of
no,
thing.
no, it's at San Francisco Airport, but it's on another side of the airport.
I see.
And so he's like, "Hey, I need some help." I was like, "Come into my office on Monday." So I
Yeah.
went to the office on Monday, did the interview, got hired, and I don't think I even graduated. I was already working.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Yep, yep.
So tell me, what's operations mean in that kind of a capacity? Like,
Yes, so I started out actually working the front desk of what I would call a private jet terminal at
okay.
San Francisco Airport.
Yep.
And so it
Oh,
was
so these are like private people that own private jets and stuff, right? Like
yeah.
it's not just your
Hmm.
crop dusters and things. These are
No.
Lears and whatnot.
Yeah, these are people that own their jets. They charter it.
Yeah, yeah.
They manage it for maybe a billionaire or something like
Right,
that.
right.
And being unique in San Francisco, you see a lot of the tech stuff that
Sure.
you encounter a lot of different people. A lot of events happen in San Francisco, and so the first year I was really like starstruck.
Right.
Over time, that
Yeah,
gets
whatever.
old.
It's just Mark
whatever.
Zuckerberg.
It's
Whatever.
But then I realized after a few months, I really liked this part of the industry
Yeah.
because I liked before that I think I was very shy and timid, but being in the workforce really got me out of my shell,
Mm.
and I really love the relationship building. I saw frequent customers that were coming through,
Mm.
both the passengers and the pilots, or
Right.
even the flight
Probably get to
attendant.
know a lot of the
Right,
pilots and stuff because they're there every Monday morning at 10, just
right.
about, or whatever.
Yeah, so you get to see some frequent faces, and I just started working a lot of overtime because I just love what I did. I live like 3 minutes from work. So I was like, I'm gonna work as much as I can, save up, and I just enjoyed the job.
Yeah.
I was like, this is what I want to do for long term. And looking back 10 years later, like I'm so glad I went that route in aviation because it brought me into some really cool places and cool experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about like, the progression at that place because you started front desk. Did you move up quickly? Did that change? Were you there a long time?
Yeah, so I thought I was gonna be the boss like in a few weeks.
You had a degree.
I was
I
like,
mean,
I've got to.
and you're a wait. No, you're not Gen Z. You're a
No,
millennial.
millennial. Yeah.
Yeah. If
I
you're
was,
Gen Z, you would assume that, but
yeah.
you were ahead of the curve there.
I was like, I've got a bachelor's. I can run this place with my eyes closed. But come to know that, so I started applying for stuff like within a few weeks. Started applying for like manager positions, and then our vice president of HR, Judy Cook, actually, she's still a good friend of mine. I call her my signature mom,
Yeah.
which was actually the company I worked for back then. And she's like, son, like you need to have patience. She's like, I know you're eager to grow. I know you want to grow, and I know you really love your job. But take some time and actually learn the position, learn the business, go and experience some of the other roles. And my manager agreed as well, like experience some other roles in the business,
Yeah.
learn it more. And also my team members, a lot of them had a lot of experience with this company,
Sure.
and they really rallied around me and helped get me up to speed in the business. And they appreciated me helping them out, working
Yeah.
extra hours. And so they knew I wanted to grow in the company, so they wanted to help me.
Think about or tell me about the operation. Was there 20 people, 50 people? Like is there a bunch of different landing strips and things? Like what are all the people doing in a company like that?
Yeah, so in that type of company where you're handling private jets, what I would call when private jets go to a private jet terminal.
Yeah.
And so you have your operations folks, your outside folks,
Yep,
which
yep.
are your baggage
Wheeling
handlers.
up the
Yeah,
little stairway thingies and
wheeling
whatnot.
up the carts and doing all the different
Fueling up the jets.
fueling and servicing the lab. That's where you really get your hands dirty.
Sure.
And you help out with bags but it's a lot of customer interaction too.
Yeah.
It's not like on the airlines.
So it's almost like a hotel-ish
Right.
environment in some
It's
respects.
it's like a hotel environment sort of. So it's a lot of like very
Yeah,
high end
guest
service.
services.
Yeah, like our customer service training was based on the Ritz-Carlton standards.
Oh, nice.
So and then your indoor folks, which is the customer service side, you have valet, you have your concierge, you have like
People just taking care of stuff for
yeah.
these wealthy people.
And then you have your front desk, which I was working at,
Yeah.
and that's kind of your hotel front desk.
Yeah.
And where you make all your reservations, pay your bills,
Yeah.
get the services that you need.
Yeah. I need to be able to take off on
Right.
Tuesday the 16th at 9 a.m.
Exactly. Yeah.
or
So
whatever.
we would need to take phone calls, answer emails for
Yeah.
scheduling stuff, because it's not like actually you don't even call hotels to book stuff,
Not
but
anymore.
now like back then people were calling us to we would take care of all their stuff, like hotels, rental cars.
Really?
They would call us to do everything
Yeah.
because that's what was the service that we were providing.
Yeah.
So it
That's
was
pretty cool.
It was a lot of work, a lot
Yeah.
of mistakes too. Trying to get all the detail, because in that business it's all about the details.
Sure.
Like I mean, one of the times, if you don't get a meal right, if you don't get a catering order right, if you don't get the fuel right, if you don't get something right, that could ruin the entire flight
Right.
for the person.
Yeah.
And it's happened several times.
Like what do you mean the fuel right?
So sometimes there's different verbiages for fuel, and different aircraft do fuel differently.
Okay.
So if you overfuel an airplane by mistake,
Yeah.
whether you get sidetracked or you just get distracted or you miscalculate,
Okay.
that could mean
It's hard for them to get off the ground.
yeah, they can't leave, so they have to like burn it off.
Oh, really? They just sit there.
Yep. Yep.
Crazy.
I did that with the Rock's airplane one time.
Really?
So he was in town filming
Oh, The Rock.
The Rock. Yeah, so he was filming San Andreas.
Sorry, The Rock.
So he was filming San Andreas. Remember
I
that
do.
movie
Yeah,
back
yeah.
then? And I overfueled his airplane. He was just in and out for the day, and I overfueled his airplane by a lot, like a lot, a lot, a lot. Like
And because he had so many people on board and so much luggage and stuff, like it was
yeah,
either leave some people behind or burn some fuel off.
exactly. And those type of aircrafts, like the jets, they're a bit more sensitive when it comes to weight
Yeah.
and balance. So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
How many times have you been in the air, do you think?
On a jet,
Yeah.
actually, maybe like 5 times. I would say,
Really?
yeah, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Including like commercial and everything?
Oh, not like
No.
like
You're
on a
talking
jet.
about like private jets and
Private,
stuff.
private was probably 5. Commercial, oh, I lost track.
You were a ground guy, but you've been traveling all over the country
Yeah,
doing coachings and leadership
yeah.
trainings and different
Well,
things and whatever
well,
vacations.
aviation brought me. I used to travel a lot for work.
Okay.
Yeah, I traveled like crazy.
Well, it sounds like we have more chapters in this career path. Tell me about the travel zone. Like, is that with the same company? They were
Yeah,
a ground based thing, weren't they, or no?
yeah. It was with the same company. So I was working for one of the largest operators in the world. So they have like 200 private jet
Oh wow.
terminals
Okay.
all over the globe.
Gotcha.
And so being a part of a global network, right? And I wanted to grow. They're like, hey, go help out at this location.
Oh,
Go help out this special event, like Super Bowl,
I'm starting to see how this plays out. Not to
Right,
break your bubble, but you became an aggregator of best practices from different
right.
parts of the whole
Ex-
operation.
exactly. So they're like, Super Bowl, that attracts a whole bunch of private jets to
Right.
wherever it's happening. Like, go help out.
Yeah.
We hosted Super Bowl at one of our locations that was startup in San Jose. So we hosted that, and
Wow.
doing those type of stuff, I loved it. I love traveling, going to different conferences. It brought me to places that I would probably have never traveled to on my own.
Sounds like they invested in you as well through different
Hmm.
leadership trainings and stuff. They're like, hey, Rocky over here really
Yeah,
wants to learn more outside of just the day to day, and so let's send him to this thing and that.
yeah.
Or was it everybody?
No, it was specifically me because day one I was able to meet with one of the executives that had just
Mm.
happened to be in town.
Yeah.
I was like, "This is what I want to do," and I was like, "I want to become like a leader in the aviation field
Mm.
and learn more and stuff like that."
And
He's like,
then do training for
"Y-
these other. Eventually, it sounds like other
"Yeah,
departments and
yeah."
divisions and whatever.
And then so he really rallied
Mm.
around me. His name is Eric, and he's still a good friend of mine.
Nice.
And so he helped me really have those opportunities to not only go to these industry conferences to network with other people in the company, but send me off to other locations to
Mm.
learn, whether it was for special events, for newly acquired locations, or there would be times when there would just be consistent short staffing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that something that I'm drawn to in this part of the story is that, like, it was through your travel and interaction and sampling of these different things that really equipped you to become kind of a leader trainer, because it's not just by sitting at your desk and focusing on the thing, or even sitting in your own terminal and focusing on the problem, that you're really going to have the timeless teaching kind of stuff. It's by kind of seeing those where those principles really apply
Hmm.
broader.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it really helped me focusing in everything that I did. I always focused on relationship building, whether it was someone in the industry or within the company or my coworkers. It was
Yeah.
focusing on that first. And I think that's what really helped me help people rally around me and advocate for my growth and really help support me in my growth and just learning more about the business so that I could move on to the next step, whatever that was.
Yeah. So, you were with this company quite a few years then, is that right?
10 years.
Oh, wow.
10
Okay.
years, yeah.
Oh, so starting when you were just a real puppy.
Yes, I started 1 week after I turned 18.
Okay.
Yeah, legal to work.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you had this journey with this company, and then, like, your chapter turns to Northern Colorado. And tell me, like, is that
Hmm.
already now? And how's that
Uh,
play out? Like,
well, yeah. So that time with that company kind of brought me on different parts of the world: East Coast, West Coast, the Caribbean, abroad, and I ended up my last role with them was in Chicago.
Okay.
So I went from the Caribbean to Chicago,
Okay. That's a hard one.
and then I realized I was looking for more growth, different area of growth, and so I left that organization and wanted really to learn different aspects of the business.
Okay.
So I wanted to learn a little bit of kind of the behind the scenes of what happens in the operation. So how do you develop like a private jet terminal?
Oh,
The
okay.
different
You want to go deeper.
right, more on the business side and the development
Yeah.
side. And so I got that experience over with a consulting firm for a couple of years. And then I realized, I want to do some more. And I joined the company over here in NoCo and a developer that was building a private jet terminal and got some really good experience there as well. And really enjoyed that. But came to a point where I was like, I really want to pursue my own venture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the Fort Collins Loveland Airport, and
Mm-hmm.
it's you could read in a newspaper. Martin is working on this terminal, Martin Lind and
Mm-hmm.
Water Valley Company.
Mm-hmm.
So he's trying to build like I guess kind of that same kind of a white glove service terminal. Does it exist now, or is it like in hopes of existing at that level? I mean, I'm sure it's not San Francisco Airport level.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, actually, with my background, I helped start up a brand new location for the first company that I was with in San Jose,
Okay.
which was a fairly similar sizable
Right.
campus
But a
to.
big company
Yeah,
that's done it a bunch of times.
exactly. So yeah, it was like 6 hangars, like huge hangars, and a huge terminal, very similar to what's going on at this airport
Oh,
here.
really? Okay.
Yeah, the Northern Colorado Regional Airport, and so it's going to be an amazing project, especially with the growth that NOCO is experiencing.
Yeah.
Not only on the development side, but the business side,
Yeah.
and really excited for the future of this airport.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah.
So, and as that played out, you're kind of like, okay, love this. Really am getting the bitten bug on Maxwell coaching and elements. Was that going way back to then, or was that also part of this transition consultancy stuff like that?
I think always was in the back of my mind. I think more so this new book that I'm coming out with. I talk a lot about of my experience in the Caribbean and how that was. That was really a life changing moment for me.
Kind of formative.
Yeah, yeah, a life changing moment. That's where I started to live a little bit
Okay.
rather than be focused on my
Oh,
career.
workaholicism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
started to live life and really ingrain that Caribbean culture and lifestyle.
And then you go back to Chicago, you're like, well,
Yeah,
screw this.
yeah.
This is work.
So
No,
I,
just
I
kidding.
I learned I learned a lot through that
But there's
experience.
having some balance, right?
Right.
Like part of the Caribbean lifestyle does
Mhm.
have that notion of, work hard and then
Yeah,
play.
yeah. So having some balance, and then I realized, this leadership stuff. I started to do a lot of that stuff in the Caribbean because I saw
Oh,
such a need for it. So one of the things that we hosted the country's first millennial leadership conference.
okay.
And so that brought millennials within the country. We did a 1 day conference.
Your organization
No,
did it? Or
is
you were...
I personally partnered with I think it was like the Employers Federation over there,
Oh, okay.
and so I proposed this idea as like, hey, this is something I see that we
Oh,
need,
wow.
and we just did it, and I did that outside of work because I saw such a need for leadership being taught there,
Okay.
and then
And tell me about this.
yeah,
Like, this is just you side hustling into what kind of a conference did you pull together?
yeah, so it was a 1 day conference with young people within.
Aviation industry only? No,
No,
this is all over
it
the
was
place,
from
right?
all industries
Yeah.
on the island, and got about 200-300 people in the room.
Nice.
And with this,
And what island is this?
this is Antigua and Barbuda.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Barbuda.
Barbuda. Yeah,
Barbuda.
yeah.
I've been to Barbados, but I don't know
So
where.
Barbuda is where Princess Diana used to vacation.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff that's there, it's like named. There's a bar called like Prince Harry's or
Interesting.
something like that. Yeah.
Where is it geographically? Is it like just off the U.S. Virgin Islands or something?
It is north of Barbados
Okay.
and south of Puerto Rico.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right in that
So it's
zone.
in that zone, yeah.
Yeah, it must be
Yeah.
a pretty small island, though, I suspect. Huh?
Very small. I mean, to go from one side to the other island's like 45 minutes, an
Wow.
hour. Yeah.
Yeah, so a
Yeah.
population of a few 100,000 or something,
Just
probably.
about. Yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool to be that much of an impact maker on a little island like that, right? Like,
Yeah. And then I got introduced to Travis, who is my partner in the
oh,
leadership
uh-huh.
business. So we always stayed in touch, but we really could never do anything because I was so busy in the Caribbean and
Sure.
different time zones, and time was always changing, and I was busy with work and just
Right.
enjoying life. And COVID happened, and then so I was caught up in other stuff.
And how
And
was that for airport operations?
we had nothing. We were
That
shut. We
was
the airport
boring. Yeah.
the airport was shut down for 6 months.
Really?
So, but thankfully, we kept everyone 100%. We were the only location in the company that kept everyone on payroll
Really?
100%.
Wow.
And we had like humanitarian flights,
Mm.
that brought in like masks and
Mm.
vaccines and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Yeah.
But so the airport was still open for those.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
Pretty interesting times. I didn't realize it would just go to zero, but I suppose, I mean, there was nothing going on. There was no events to go to, etc.
No, and imagine like curfew. You only could go grocery shopping from like 8 a.m. to noon.
Really?
So you would have to stay in line for like an hour and a half
Oh, interesting.
to get in the store.
Right.
Forget about checking
That's a
out.
pretty poorly thought out concept because
Yeah.
all these people in line are like,
Yeah. Yep.
anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
Just like not change anything, it would have probably
Yeah.
been safer.
Exactly.
But that's one of my things is when the more people try to fix things, the more they fucks it up sometimes.
Yeah.
But I digress. So
What were we talking about?
this transition then to Chicago and
Yeah.
kind of and the sprouts of really turning your attention to this are already there.
Exactly. So it was already there where I'm like, I want to do some leadership and make impact and
Yeah.
really help not only just leadership training in general, but like more so the young people. I'm very passionate about young people, and
Yeah.
which is why I wrote this book. And I'm like, I want to do more. So in Chicago, I had more time on my hands. Time zones weren't an issue. So
Right.
Travis and I were like, let's just go
Work on this a little bit.
let's work on this. So we started with a podcast. We started with the Leadership Download podcast.
Okay.
And so all we did was we used to go on, record ourselves for like hour and a half, and talk about
Oh, you guys edit though, right?
little
bit. Okay,
edits
so
here
it's
and
pretty
there.
long form still.
Yeah, pretty long form. And we just started talking about leadership, our experiences, some of the books that we're reading, and just sharing our heart for leadership with the hopes that someone's listening out there.
Yeah.
And so we just published it on YouTube, and then nothing. We saw really no traction.
Yeah.
It was like
Been there.
a year later, and we're like, oh wow, people are actually listening. But it's not just young people; it's like executives in our industry are listening,
Oh.
and we're like, oh wow, we're actually going somewhere. So I continued, the day job in aviation, and it was a tough job actually. Aviation,
Yeah,
it
well,
was,
and the Fort Collins Loveland Airport is kind of in a weird place
Yeah.
in general and stuff, and
Yeah.
Martin's doing his best to try to be a catalyzing source of getting it
Yeah,
good.
and even while I was in Chicago and just recently moved to Denver a couple years ago, and I was like, I just need something more, and so we started to think about, people were asking, what else do you have to offer? Like they said, well, you're giving too much away for free,
On your podcast.
so you need to charge for this stuff. And so it took us probably about 2 years to formulate an idea and what we wanted to do, and that's really where TC Advisory Group started. The
Okay.
idea of it is like
Yeah.
doing this as a business, and we've developed a good core business model. We've got good people partnered in the business that I dearly trust. Like I was like, I'm only doing it with people that I trust, because business
Yeah.
partnerships could be
Sure.
pretty shaky sometimes, or even shady.
Is your other partner more experienced in this industry of actually making it his full-time hustle?
Yeah. So he actually got laid off from the industry probably maybe a year ago,
Oh, I see.
and so he's already kind of full
He's
throttle.
been doing it,
full throttle,
trying to get you
yeah,
to jump.
trying to get me to jump, and so now I have the time to really focus on it, and it's such a relief, but it's also, it's in the back of your mind. You think it's very nerve-wracking
Yeah,
to think about, being self-employed, but it's something that I've always wanted to do, and I think the timing is right.
Yeah. Well, I recommend you listen to my podcast with Richard Fagerlin if you haven't
Oh,
already.
okay.
He had like a fresh baby and quit his job and did what you're doing
Hmm.
a long time ago and gave 100 free keynotes and da da da.
Yeah.
But he's got one of the more successful strategic planning kind of groups around. So
Hmm.
you can do it.
Yeah, and I think
Uh,
what really helps is really having a good circle of support around you.
totally.
Like the people that I've met here in Northern Colorado, um, I've met so many awesome people, and you know some of the names, and
Sure.
like they're just a phone call away, and they're really supportive, even though they're like they don't know understand the
Yeah.
leadership stuff. Some do, but they're like very supportive and very willing to give their feedback and thoughts. Because leadership is also a very sensitive topic. A lot of people don't necessarily want to talk about it
Mm,
because they might feel inferior, like, oh,
mm.
they're going to challenge the way I lead the business, or they're going to challenge, people are going to start challenging me.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Like, what are some of these principles? So let's say I'm a company of whatever. I'm a pizza shop
Hmm.
with 14 employees. Part time, full time, whatever. Like, what does leadership mean in a just a simple small business concept like that? And what can a group like yours do that actually impacts leadership? And
Hmm.
is it for everybody? Is it for the leader management team only? Is it for yeah,
Yeah, so it's for all levels of the organization, depending on the way the
the
person,
contract
the
works or
way the
whatever?
contract or
Yeah.
the leader comes. I like to actually go back to a show that I used to watch,
Okay.
called The Prophet by
Yeah.
Marcus Lemonis.
I've watched it a couple
Yeah,
times.
so I really learned a lot from the way he navigates through that show, where he
Hmm.
has that people process product model.
Yeah.
He focuses first on the people, does the fix there. He goes and fix all the processes, which sometimes there's too many and almost inhibits you to delivering the right product.
Yeah.
And so I really took on that model. And one of our approaches that we do, if a leader comes up to us and says, "Hey, I need some help. I don't know what it is," because that's oftentimes what we get.
Yeah. Yeah.
They need some help. They think they know what they need, but they don't know. So where we start is doing the DISC assessment.
Oh yeah.
So we
Okay.
do the Maxwell DISC assessment. Travis is our certified trainer in that.
Does the Maxwell have like a special version of disc
Yeah,
or
it's
something?
it's it's a little bit of a different version.
They just cut a deal with disc to not pay as much on each one or something, probably.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So we what we do is we have the entire team go through the DISC assessment,
Okay.
and then we bring them through a series of workshops, 4 or 5 different workshops,
Okay.
and where the team members
So it really starts with knowing themselves
right.
and then building the skills to interact together.
Exactly. So let's take your example of a pizza shop.
Yeah.
5, 6 people, you do the disc and start working them through this process where they not only start understanding themselves, but understand each other and the way they work, their strong suits. And oftentimes, what we found is like people are in the wrong positions.
Hmm.
The person that's
Yeah.
answering the phone is better at, I don't know, accounting or something, or
Right. Right.
being behind the scenes rather than in the forefront of the
Yeah.
operation.
Yeah.
And then that's where we're able to give the diagnosis. Once that process is done, it's like, okay, this is where you need help. Whether it's communication, or whatever thing that we feel that the team needs. So
Yeah.
that's kind of our
And then some one-on-one engagements from there, even
sort
potentially,
of
maybe not.
maybe more one-on-ones with the leader,
Right.
but it's more in the group setting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's also kind of that examination
Yep.
assessment. Kind
Yeah.
of okay, this person that you've got at the front desk is just not very happy trying to screw on a smile every time,
Yeah.
but she could be really great in the back of the house
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, so we found that better than just giving out a menu of services and
Yeah,
this is what we offer and you pick and choose. It's like, no, we'll go through this introductory
kind of a
process.
diagnosis
Exactly.
element, a few weeks kind of thing
Yeah.
potentially.
So we found that very beneficial for organizations too, because oftentimes leaders working with a team for years and years and years
Yeah,
and doesn't truly understand their team until going through this
yeah, yeah.
process.
Like,
Uh,
oh, that's why you always act that way.
Yeah, that's why I need to
Or the
talk to you
leader.
differently, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And then also people understand the leader better. Like, oh, this person is not good at that.
yeah,
So maybe I can help him in that
yeah,
or her in that.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, we've like we spoke in our previous conversation. We've been doing the Hallow stuff
Yeah.
here at Loco, but before that we did other things too, because I think it's so important for people to recognize that there are different kinds of thinkers and
Mm-hmm.
personality types. And like if we interact with every person in our lives the same,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have a lot different outcomes
Oh
depending
yeah,
on who we're interacting with.
yeah, for sure. And it's going to make your life as a leader very difficult.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, growing some awareness in those leaders and those managers is clutch.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, what else? What else would you have to tell me that kind of is your pointer set on from here? You're semi-focused on aviation industry clients and things, or at least that's where you can make a lot of impact easily,
Yeah,
I
so
suspect.
so on the business aviation side, you have a pretty good network of people,
Yeah.
and I would say that industry is still a little bit behind the curve in terms of developing leaders and really the next generations.
Hmm.
I mean, I remember when I started in the industry back in 2012, and I walked into conference rooms for these industry conferences.
Yeah.
All you see is just white hair.
Yeah.
Like there's more white hair, and
And
they're
probably white skin too.
yeah, that too. I didn't want to mention it, but yeah, that too. But now the industry is just so diverse in like
Interesting.
all different aspects. But
Well, and bringing that together is
exactly.
important, but maybe
Hmm.
not quite aware yet.
And there's more that still needs to be done in the industry, which is why I don't want to leave the. That's where my heart will be in aviation for
Yeah,
the rest of my life,
I
and
dig it.
will continue to pursue. And I think that's where we can make some really good impact in the aviation industry, primarily, and of course in the other fields as
It's
well.
really team impact, right?
Hmm.
Like you're not a. If I wanted to hire you to be my coach, my one coach, that's not really what you do. You're more of a team kind of a functionality kind of thing.
Yeah, we do that, but we're not really focusing on that
Yeah.
quite yet. We're more in the team
Or if you're
team
working with a
training.
team
Yeah.
and the leader needed some extra help, that's more
Yeah,
likely.
exactly. So that's what in the
They're like,
case
this
of
team is never going to come together until you change your ways,
yeah,
mister.
yeah,
That happens.
yeah. So
Well, I think you've got a great story. It's good to have you here in Northern Colorado. We're going to transition to the later segments here in a moment, but I'm going to
mhm.
call a short break and then we're back. So, as you know, we always talk about faith, family, politics around here. We've already touched on your family
Yeah.
a bit, but would you like to expand a little bit into that? You're a single guy, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
single. That's been
Unattached girlfriend?
no, no,
Not
nothing.
even.
No,
Okay.
it's been
Eligible 30-year-old alert here,
yep,
ladies.
yep. In NoCo.
In Northern Colorado. Yep, yep. He's not leaving. Not anytime soon, anyway.
No, no. But I think that's been the best part about it is I have a pretty good inner circle of friends, and just been trying to live life to the fullest, and trying to live it as much as I can, because that's something that I learned from my parents is they had me
Mm,
early in the early 20s,
yeah.
and they say they wish that after getting married they would have explored a little bit more,
Hmm.
done a little bit of stuff.
Yeah. Felt very tied to
Yeah,
the obligations.
exactly. So they pretty much encourage me, don't
Yeah.
rush it.
Well, you've been
Go,
all over the world,
yeah,
you know.
they're like go live it, and there's no pressures on like the typical Indian culture, like oh get married,
All
have
right.
kids. So
Well, and don't wait too long because all the best cuts are taken after
yeah,
Wednesday afternoon.
yeah,
So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Um,
Yeah,
so, like, talk to me about your sister a
yeah.
little bit.
So
You mentioned you're very close still.
yeah, so we are super duper close. We talk every day on the phone. So she's 6 years younger than me, so
Mm-hmm.
that would
It's
leave her at
24 today.
24. And she took the route that my parents wanted me to go through, which was the medical field.
Okay.
So she's doing that, and she lives at home, and she is she actually visiting here in a couple of weeks.
Oh,
But
cool.
yeah, so yeah, we are super duper close, and
Proud
yeah,
of her for working in that field or getting
yeah,
close. Is she
yeah,
out of school
yeah.
then?
She's out of school.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been awesome. I think more so, growing up, you have that love hate relationship, right?
Sure.
You go out, get after each other. But then once you grow up and, once she reached her 20s, you're like, okay, it becomes that brother and sibling relationship becomes a little bit more serious,
Yeah.
meaning you're able to have those like adult like conversations
Sure.
and stuff like that. and so now we're focused on going traveling places together and really encouraging each other. Like if there's a time when I don't call her, she'll know something's up,
Yeah, yeah,
or she'll get upset, like, "Oh,
yeah.
you're too
You got a
busy."
rhythm. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's cool.
So I know every day she gets off of work at 6 o'clock my time, so she's expecting a call.
Is that right?
Yep, yep,
Oh,
yeah.
that's great.
She
I
expects
love
a
it.
call while she's driving back home.
That's
So
nice. That's
yeah.
nice. Your folks are still with us
hmm
and things.
Yeah. So
They're
they
out there in San Francisco still.
yeah, so they live in San Francisco, and then my grandparents are still out
Wow.
there.
Wow.
So I talk to them a lot too. So we're a very, very close, tight knit family.
Yeah. Have they been out here?
Yeah. So they helped me move up here when I moved to Loveland.
Okay.
So when I did the move from Denver up here, they loved Colorado.
Yeah.
I took them to Estes
Is there part of
Park.
you that's tempted to be like going back to San Francisco region?
Oh no,
Not at all.
no, no, no,
You hear
no,
that, Gavin Newsom? You
no.
can't compete.
It's changed so much. I
Yeah.
have to say, like we're at the small town that I grew up in by the airport.
Yeah.
In that little city, you won't believe, like, YouTube's headquarters is in their little town.
Oh,
Like the headquarters is there, so Walmart.com headquarters is there,
right.
and Google has just expanded in San Bruno,
Wow.
and
So why
so
don't your folks and your sister split?
they like it out there. They
Yeah.
they they like it. They like being in the known.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they like being the comfortable, so that's very good for them.
Yeah.
But the cities around there have just changed so much. Traffic is terrible, and I remember there was an apartment complex down the street
Yeah.
back in the day when they first opened. It was like $500 a month for like a one
Right.
bedroom.
Right.
Now that same one,
2,500.
no, it's like 4,000. Yeah,
How long ago? 10 years
10 years
ago.
ago, let's
Whatever.
say, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Should
it's
have bought that building, young man.
I know I should have bought that. I should have bought all that land that was available
Right. All
in
that
our
bare
city.
vacant lots that were nothing used for them.
I know, and now there's like multi-families going up everywhere.
Right.
And it's just crazy.
Pretty wild to see that kind of stuff
Yeah.
happen.
But it's changed so much. I would never go back.
Yeah.
I think to live there.
So, when you find that special someone, what are the things that you'd be looking for?
Oh boy. One of the first
She might be
things.
listening right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. If you're listening out there, would say one of the first things is faith.
Yeah.
That's one thing I will never compromise. Is I need someone that has the same hunger for God that I do, and same belief in God that I do. I think that's really my one non-negotiable,
Okay.
and someone that truly believes in family.
Yeah.
Because
Well, and in you,
right,
as a
yeah.
20-year veteran of marriage, like the biggest thing that a bride can do for a husband almost is believe in that person.
Yeah, and I meant also family, like someone that values their own family too.
Mm.
Because I've seen there's a lot of even just my friends growing up.
Sure.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of them, from what I observed, they didn't really value their family.
Yeah.
They didn't really value what their parents did for them or the people that surrounded them,
Yeah.
or helped raise them. They didn't really value that.
Yeah.
And I really want to look for someone that values their parents or whoever that supported them growing up.
Yeah. That's appreciated.
Yeah.
Would you prefer to talk about faith or politics next?
Let's do politics and then come back to faith.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me about politics in the airline industry in
Oh.
general. Are there things that they're lobbying for and things that affect it? Whatever. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic of, especially in the private jets things, like all those guys are carbon tax avoiders, right? And there's like all this pressure of the times, I guess, on that industry, and yet people want to get places and do stuff.
Yeah, the private aviation side has taken a lot of hits, I would
Really?
say, especially in the recent years. It's more I guess heated in Europe right now.
Okay.
So there's countries that really don't want private jets at all.
Period.
So I mean, there are protests going on in Europe at these like private aviation conferences where people are going into airports and like spray painting and
Right.
vandalizing private jets.
Climate killer.
Yeah, the climate
Whatever.
killers and stuff like that. So it's
Interesting.
getting pretty heated out
I
in
was just
Europe.
speculating on that, by the way. I had no
No,
knowledge of
yeah.
it,
So
but
it's getting pretty serious now, but some of that is trickling over here now.
hmm
Um, it's not as prevalent, but I think, back in 2008 when GM and, all the car manufacturers showed up at Congress,
yeah,
that really took a toll on the private aviation industry because one of the congressmen or congresswomen said, how did you get here to DC? And they said in their private jets.
right,
And so they were asking bailout money
right,
when they were flying in their $100 million jets, each
right,
and every one of them.
right.
And so they're like, it's kind of double standard here. Like, what are you
Mm,
doing?
yeah.
And so that really took a toll on private aviation back in '08
Hmm.
when that happened.
Interesting.
And so a lot of companies started to get rid of their private jet. A
Interesting.
lot of these big corporations,
Oh, so were you kind of joined the industry when it was in a tough time, I guess.
exactly, yeah. It was kind of getting out of that time. It was
Right.
just kind of on the cusp of
But got hit pretty
growth.
good
It got hit pretty good. People were
from politics in some
right
respects.
from politics.
Interesting.
People were ashamed to have a private jet on their balance sheet,
Yeah.
so people were getting rid of it left and right.
Interesting.
But I think over time, people realized, especially with COVID,
Right.
that really set off the industry because a lot of people weren't wanting to fly in the
Mm.
airlines,
Yeah.
and the cost of
Interesting.
that's going up. So people were like, might as well buy a
I could
small.
charter a jet for me and my
Right.
family to go to Mexico.
Yep. So might as well charter a jet or buy my own and share it with a couple people.
Right.
And so people are a little bit more open about it
Yeah.
in today's world.
Well, and TSA continues to be a pain and stuff. You could
Exactly.
just drive right up, I imagine, and just like get in your airplane.
Yeah, I mean, you just look
There's
at
probably some levels of
yeah.
inspection and whatever, but
Actually, no,
not really.
no, not unless you're flying international.
So I could pack my pistol that I don't
Mhm.
actually exist if anybody asks.
Yeah, yeah, you could take it on board. You
Yeah.
have a lot of ease. I mean, I've done it a couple times, or you can just go and literally park your car at the door of the aircraft
Yeah.
and go in, go to your next destination, have a car where they're waiting,
Yeah.
and it's just
Interesting.
so easy. But on the politics side,
Yeah.
it's a more people are open about it. More people are getting comfortable with it. I would say there's a lot of issues right now with the carbon stuff, like you mentioned, the fuel.
Yeah.
I think now companies that have these assets of private jets are now saying, okay, we have these jets, but how do we make it more sustainable?
Yeah,
So
kind of justify the use
yeah,
and the value.
so there's actually been a lot here at the Colorado state level legislation with fuel and things like that. So now
Oh, interesting.
a lot of these operators are moving forward with sustainable aviation fuels.
Oh,
So that's
because you can make it's like basically a diesel,
Mhm.
right? Like it's a
Yep.
biodiesel
Yeah.
if you want.
Yep. So it's now you see sustainable aviation fuels
Hmm.
go into the mix, and there you'll be able to get some tax credits on the back end,
Hmm.
and so you see a lot of these private jet terminal operators, such as
Yeah.
the one I worked for before,
Yeah.
providing that,
Interesting.
and so you see a lot of that now.
Should we jump out of the industry and just talk about politics in general?
Yeah. Yep.
What you got? Biden or Trump is your favorite candidate?
You know what? I used to go one way,
Yeah.
but growing up, I used to be really heavy in politics.
Okay.
I
Tell me.
loved politics. I loved every single thing about it. I would
Really?
follow every election. I would follow the local politics. I actually, before I moved out of California, I really wanted to campaign to be mayor.
Really?
Yeah, I was really intrigued by politics, and that was one of my backup like career routes.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was like film, and then photography, and then politics.
Interesting.
And so I was always interested. I was such a fan. Did so much research on it, like news. I was always watching the news any chance I could.
Okay.
And so my like ideals have always been, I would say, on the Republican side.
Okay.
And I've always just cherished the ideals that they have because the values definitely align with my faith too.
Sure.
A lot of their beliefs,
From like the abortion protection and things like that, and small
Exactly.
government in general.
Yeah, it aligns with that. But I mean, the last, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 8 years, whatever.
Right.
It's been like a real challenge to figure out, who's right and who's wrong.
Yeah. You're a
So
closet libertarian too.
yeah, yeah. So I kind of just listen to both sides now.
Okay.
I try not going one way or the other today.
Yeah.
I would say it's more trying to figure out like the
How
ideals.
do we actually live together if we have different values?
Exactly.
Is one thing because
Yeah.
it's obvious to me that we have significantly divergent values
Yeah.
as a nation right now, and
Mhm.
yes, we can try to work on the hard work of bringing values back together, and
Yeah.
that's you know God's work and our work,
Mhm.
and like we still need to stay united as a nation with disparate values.
Yeah, I think I was very prideful of my ideals and beliefs,
Mm,
especially when the '08 election.
mm,
I was very prideful of being a Republican and having these ideals, but I wasn't listening to what everyone else was talking about,
mm-hmm.
right? The other side, the other parties.
Yeah, yeah,
And so now I've kept an open mind in terms of listening other people's ideals, and I think that's really it helped me shift on a personal level to be able to understand and really love on people for who they are, and that stems from faith too. It's
mm,
loving people for who they are and meeting them for where they're at,
for sure.
rather than talking down on them. Because I think back then I had the ideal of my way is the right way and your way is
Yeah,
the
yeah,
wrong way, and so I've really taken a back seat at that, and it's like, okay, what is this person saying? What is the opposing view saying?
yeah,
Because I realize, you know, no one's really right and no one's really wrong.
yeah.
It's
There's a
like
lot of dilemmas in the
there's
world.
a yeah, it's just people are just not listening to each other
Yeah,
because they're too prideful of their ideals, their positions, and their fame or the way they
yeah,
look
being right,
being
whatever.
right. And
Yeah,
because if they get
the virtue signaling stuff. Yeah,
right, because if they get proven wrong, then they might not get voted again or something.
yeah.
I don't know.
Has anybody ever told you look like a young Vivek Ramaswamy?
No,
Just kidding, not really.
not really.
But he's kind of that younger person of you that you were
Yeah.
just talking about. That's so convinced of his own convictions, at least
Hmm.
in the way he talks and
Yeah.
presents it, that there's no room for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I tend to agree with a lot of what he says,
Hmm.
so I don't disagree. Um, let's cruise back to faith.
Faith. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned you kind of inherited your family's faith that
Hmm.
your mom initiated even back in grade school or whatever
Hmm.
in Fiji. Um, how would you describe that? Was it mainstream denominational? Are you Catholics? Are you Protestants? Are you like what's
Oh,
the? You didn't really
yeah.
define
I
it
guess I never,
necessarily.
I never defined
Well, you
it.
don't need to put God in a box. I'm not making you, but
Yeah. So I'm a Christian, non-denominational,
okay.
and grew up in the church, going to
Just one
church.
small church in your neighborhood or
Yeah,
something like
it was
that.
actually a fairly large church in our
Okay.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
But I never really understood it. It was just like this thing you went to every Sunday.
Right. So it was
Mom,
baked in until
right?
you
It was like,
examined it.
Mom, get ready, yelling at you.
If you want to stay on mom's good side,
Yeah, yeah.
you get your butt to church.
Yeah, sometimes we're getting 10 o'clock church. That was our time. We're rolling in there at like 10:15, 10:20.
With mom with a red face
Right,
and
right.
you guys with red bottoms, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah, going to Sunday school and stuff. But I never really understood it, to be honest. Never really understood what it was all about. And that's because, so my dad identifies himself as a Hindu.
Mm,
So his side of the family is all
interesting.
Hindu. So I was very divided growing up because I didn't know what
Oh, I
was
thought your mom was going to bring him along for
no.
the ride, but that
I,
didn't happen.
I didn't really know what was right, what was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the influence with faith came, of course, from my mom dragging
Sure.
us to church, and so I had great friends growing up and in the church too, but still never really like, I guess, really took it on.
Well, I don't think you really. I mean, maybe there's some people that are contrary to this, but I think
Yeah.
until you really face up with doubt,
Hmm.
you can't really embrace faith fully
Yeah,
in some ways.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I never really knew what to believe because even like people at school, I went to public high school and
Sure.
stuff like that. I realized there were a lot of atheists, a lot of different faiths,
Sure.
different backgrounds. I'm like, what to believe in?
Well, in San Francisco region is a very
Right.
increasingly liberal
Mm-hmm.
area that probably what, like 30% or 40% would be
Exactly.
at most.
And you also were afraid to talk about your faith too,
Right.
because you would be just hounded and people would be against you. Especially, yeah, back then in California, you're right. It was very very intense in terms of
Hmm.
talking about faith, and at school you couldn't really talk about it
Really?
anyways, right? Um, and so it wasn't until really college where I really truly understood faith.
Okay.
It was through back then it was called Campus Crusade for
Oh,
Christ.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh, it's not anymore?
no, it's called Crew now.
Oh, yeah. I guess I
Yeah,
knew that. Yeah.
yeah, it's called Crew. They're trying to be a bit trendy. But that was really life changing. Is when I was going down trying to find a Christian club, I guess, or
Yeah.
Christian
Some
community.
kind of a community.
Yeah, my mom was like, "You gotta find a Christian,
Your
Christian
grades are
community.
shit. You
Like,
need to get
you,
yourself some
you,
friends that
you,
don't take you out drinking
you
or
gotta
play
find."
foosball all night.
Yeah, she's like, "You gotta find a Christian community." I was like, "Okay, I'll go, I'll go, I'll
Yeah.
go." And then I met these two young guys, Paul. I'll never forget them, Paul and David. And these guys were working for Campus Crusade for Christ at the
Sure.
time, and used to show up at my dorm room at random times. Hey, are you coming to the weekly meetings? I'm like, I'll come. And it really didn't take. I wasn't very consistent my first year in college.
Yeah.
The second year in the fall, I went on a retreat with them,
Hmm.
and that was a life changing experience that I'll never forget.
Hmm.
It was actually the 27th of September in my sophomore year, so that would have been 2011, that I rededicated my life to Christ.
Hmm.
And that's because I realized I felt a sense of emptiness because I was experiencing all the worldly things. And I actually started to understand faith through that retreat and through the sermons that were at that retreat. And I realized I needed to make a change.
So for the 1 foot in
Yeah.
kind of Christian out there, which there's probably, literally millions. I mean, they're not all listening
Yeah.
to this podcast,
Yeah.
but there might be dozens listening to this podcast. But what was that meaning to you? Like, was it is it an emotional response? Was it a reasoned response? Like, what was the catalyst to that recommitment for you?
I think it was that I needed to not look for approval from other people,
Hmm.
but look for approval from God.
Something more useful,
Something more
valuable,
useful, and
actually higher than you.
right, actually higher than me, because I think that's what I was looking for. I was looking for approval from people.
For sure.
I was looking for
Yeah, teacher's pet the whole time.
right, trying to, especially being a millennial.
That's funny.
Right?
When you think teacher's pet, that's kind of, I mean, I said that a little bit slanderously.
Yeah.
You received it.
Yeah.
Right? But if I said Jesus pet
Yeah.
or God's pet or something, like, oh, thank you. Like, I do my best.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, at least for those of us that have a faith carry.
Yeah. Well, I think the key was too, I had a really good community in Crew.
Yeah.
I had a really awesome people that I was surrounded by, and where we could be open, authentic. We could say whatever was on our mind.
Yeah.
And I couldn't necessarily do that with the people I was hanging out with and, experiencing the world and
Yeah.
going out and partying and stuff like that. I couldn't really have those conversations because half the time, it was we were in loud environments or
Right.
not even really.
You don't even take time, don't make
Right.
space to acknowledge those hard things and
Yeah,
challenges
and
and places.
realizing that a lot of people that I was hanging out with back then was a lot of people due to trauma. They were trying to suppress
Sure.
their trauma and like their growing up and stuff like that they
Sure.
experienced to go out and party. I was like, I want to be with this community of people that you can actually have an awesome conversation with and be in community and do stuff where you don't need to yell or be
Right.
or be in this like party scene.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was so refreshing, going out into the mountains and going on this retreat. And I'll never forget the moment where I realized I was like living on the wrong path. I thought it was this other life that I could be living, and then come to the Crew, I could live a different life.
Right.
But not realizing that at some
It's
point,
not really allowed. It's kind of like that split
Yep.
person I was talking about that wanted to
Exactly.
do both Thrive and Loco Think Tank.
Yep, yeah.
1 foot on each boat. It's
Yeah.
going to just split you in half, kind of.
So realizing that I needed to pursue a higher purpose, and of course, it wasn't perfect from the point I dedicated,
Right.
right? It was a rocky road, of course,
Yeah.
and it still is a rocky road.
Yeah.
but and being a Christian is not easy in today's world. But one of the things that um, I've always, I guess, practiced and always look for is like having the right people around you to support me in
Mm.
faith. And I've surprisingly I found so many people in business of faith,
Yeah.
especially here in Northern Colorado.
Yeah.
I'm just like amazed by the people that I've encountered in business, because in the aviation world, you don't really see
Really.
faith at like at the forefront.
Yeah.
Like very few
Interesting.
are very open
Well, in
about
a big
it.
corporate, it's usually
Yeah.
kept at a lower level, but
Mm-hmm.
in a small town, in a small
Mm-hmm.
company, hard to hide the fact that
Yeah.
that leader's going to church every week, whatever.
Right, like even my former boss, like meeting you and a few others around this community, it's just been like awesome to just know that it's a little bit more prevalent
Yeah,
here. Yeah,
it was funny. I lived in Colorado Springs for
yeah.
2.5, 3 years, 3.5 years, I forget.
Mm-hmm.
And there it was almost like wear it on your sleeve. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
do you go to First Pres or what? It was like the first thing you talked about is make sure you establish your God credentials down there in the
Yeah,
business world.
yeah,
And here it's definitely a lot more low key and in some ways more authentic, I think.
yeah. More authentic.
Yeah,
Like you see it in the works of people. Like I'm like, why is that person so unique in what they do? And then come to find when you like meet with them for coffee or whatever, like, oh, they're a person of faith. I'm like, oh, that all makes
that's
sense.
informing the
Yeah,
way they operate. Yeah,
exactly.
fair.
Yeah.
Have you come around to a Loco experience that you think worthy of sharing in this context? A crazy experience from your lifetime?
A crazy experience.
Yeah.
Oh, I've had quite a few.
Is there one that you'd like to share in this moment?
Oh, a crazy experience.
Did you get in a fight with The Rock or anything when he had to burn off all that jet fuel?
No, I didn't see him. So,
You're just like, sorry, bro, I totally overfilled your plane.
yeah, a crazy experience. I would say. So we in San Francisco, we used to handle because Air Force One. So Air Force
Oh,
One,
okay.
the president always visits San Francisco, the Bay Area,
Sure.
no matter Republican or Democrat,
Right.
right? So, I guess that was a crazy experience being at the forefront and handling those aircraft and being right there and seeing how those operations run.
Mm.
I mean, it is insane, and it's
Like
an
the security detail rolling in and da da da
insane
da.
operation the way they do that. Security detail, the airplanes that come beforehand
Right.
with the helicopters and with the SUVs. That was a crazy experience. Oh no, here's another crazy experience is since we're talking about politics,
Sure.
it's on my mind. Donald Trump.
Okay.
So Donald Trump, when he was running for president, he was coming to San Jose, California for
Okay.
his first exclusive donor meeting. It was being held in a private jet terminal. So we had like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and like all the heads of the Silicon Valley
Wow.
walking into our building. And so he was having his first donor meeting.
Zuckerberg was there?
Yeah, he was meeting with Donald Trump in the first donor meeting in our brand new private jet terminal that we had
Okay.
just opened up.
Wow.
And so it was really awesome. Like
Right?
meeting.
Yeah, it's quite a status play right there.
Yeah, it was quite. I mean, just seeing the Trump airplane on our ramp was like amazing. His pilots were awesome. I'll never forget John. I still have his contact to this day and see him at some places.
That's one of the things that
Yeah.
doesn't jive with me sometimes about Donald Trump is because supposedly he's a terrible person, right? And
Yeah.
like those that really love Donald Trump, most of them are pretty awesome. Giuliani is a little bit over the hedge right
Yeah.
now, but like for the most part, he's had really awesome people around him, and that just wouldn't
Yeah.
be the case if he was a complete narcissistic maniac like he's painted to be.
Yeah, so his pilots were the best, and then once Donald Trump was leaving, so this is what happened. So Donald Trump was coming back early from his conference that he was having in downtown, or his,
Okay.
not conference, rally,
Rally,
yeah,
sure.
campaign rally in San Jose. And so I sent the pilots to In and Out. So they grabbed a car, went down the road to In and Out, and then we realized, oh crap, like he's coming early in advance, like than he was supposed to. I'm like,
They're not going to have him there yet?
the pilots are In and Out. So next thing I see, the pilots running from one side of the ramp with their In-N-Out burger, with their In-N-Out bags. They are hustling over, and right when they get to the steps of the aircraft, they put their In-N-Out up, and there comes Donald Trump coming back to the airplane.
That's awesome.
And the pilot actually wrote about that experience in an article, probably a couple of years ago, about that experience
That's funny.
in San Jose. And I got to interact with Donald Trump. Actually, that was a crazy experience because he normally, when high profile people come through on jets,
Yeah.
big or small, high profile, not high profile, they kind of mind their own business and
Right.
go up.
You're just a
Yeah.
little brown guy serving them.
Right. Our
Sorry.
our customer is more like the pilot's flight attendant.
Totally.
Because they're the ones preparing for their people.
Yeah.
And
all the minions, right?
Right,
You
right.
don't even noticeable hardly.
you're just a minion to them,
Yeah.
like the owners, the aircraft owners or flyers. And so Donald Trump, is cool to see him. He got out of his whatever car and then went up the steps, but he stopped halfway. He looked back and then he came back down because so I was a supervisor back then. He saw the team and he came back down and talked to us.
No.
And he goes in his jacket, his suit jacket, and hands a stack to us. He's like, thank you so much for
A stack, like
like
money.
Like it was probably $1,000 cash from his suit pocket. And he's like, you guys, this was an amazing experience. Thank you so much.
Wow.
I think it was like one of his first like campaign rallies
Wow.
in that area, and I'll never forget that. And I will only judge him based on that experience because I only know that. I only know him by that,
Every other lens is
having
colored.
that experience.
Your
Yeah.
lenses are right there.
Yeah, my lens always goes back to that.
Interesting.
He made the time and effort aside from what was going on. I mean, it was terrible protests that were going on in San Jose.
Oh, right.
It was one of the worst throughout his campaign, and but he was still in good spirits.
Yeah.
And just to see that, and I'll never forget that crazy experience.
I think
Yeah,
I think he almost expects to be assassinated
yeah,
in the
Yeah.
year ahead.
yeah,
And I think he's okay with it. I think he's at peace with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of expect it too.
yeah.
We'll see.
But the one thing that I look up to him is his heart for God,
Yeah.
and it's shown by the advisors that he surrounds himself with,
Yeah.
the pastors that he surrounds himself with. I follow a lot of the notable pastors across the globe, and
Yeah.
they often share their words about him, and I'm like, wow. Aside from all the politics and stuff,
And he's a crazy narcissistic son
Yeah.
of a gun. Don't get me wrong.
no, but seeing his faith and his how faithful he is,
And how he treats people.
and how he treats people,
That's cool.
yeah.
If people want to look you up, how do they find you?
How do they find me? You can go to my website, CameronSingh.com,
Okay.
and that's Cameron Singh with an H at the end,
SINGH.
SINGH.com, and that's pretty much how you can connect with me on there. Follow me on social media,
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, also Cameron Nathan Singh. If you do a Google search, it'll all come up.
What's your Instagram feed full of mostly?
It's one thing that I like to do in addition to my content. I really like to post a lot of encouraging content.
Oh.
So I follow a whole bunch of people, and so oftentimes you'll see in my story that I like posting stuff that's encouraging to people in their daily lives.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of resharing rather than original stuff. But
Mine's food pics and
yeah.
dog pictures
Yeah.
mostly, some nature.
I love posting when I go on travel. So I'll post like every step of the way when I go and travel. So
Yeah.
people obviously know when I'm not traveling.
here's some
Yeah.
more inspirational quotes.
Yeah.
I'm not in Fiji right now.
Right. And also a whole bunch of podcast content. So,
Yeah, cool.
I run a podcast and
Oh yeah, what's the name of that again?
what's it called?
The Prophet something.
Oh, no. Navigation and Discovery with
Oh, yeah.
Cameron Singh.
Yeah,
So I often post reels and good quotes that the guests that I bring on pastors. I've had an astronaut. I've had people from all different walks of life. And
Very cool.
I just love sharing, even if you can change one life with something like social media, that makes it
Yeah.
all enough.
With your story, all that.
Yeah. And actually there was a case that I was really astounded by it. I shared something on LinkedIn about a month or two ago.
Okay.
And there was a student that was on my LinkedIn profile that I was connected with that got the notification that I was attending an event. It was a faith-based event,
Okay.
and that person, I realized he bought my book, and then I saw him at the event, and he's like, "Oh my gosh," he's like, "This book, like I enjoyed it so much," and he was like, it, he was like, "I've never seen someone so bold about their faith and share their struggles." And we met for coffee one day, and he shared about the stuff that he's going through and stuff like that.
That's cool.
Then you're just that made it all worth it.
Totally.
Yeah, just that you can make the difference in one person's life.
Yeah.
It makes it worth it. It's a bit cliche, but
Yeah.
it makes
But
it
if you
all
can
worth
do it
it.
over and over
Yep.
and over again, you
Yep.
know, building airline terminals and things is great, but if you can
Yep.
impact teams and happiness and fitment and peace and love,
Yeah, and help people
do it.
really know that they can strive for more. Like, you don't need to limit yourself based
Yeah.
on where you came from or your upbringing. It's like, so you can strive for higher.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just by one piece of encouragement can put someone on
Well,
a
and
trajectory.
sometimes when you're dissatisfied, it doesn't mean you're in a lower or higher spot. It's just not quite the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so keep moving, keep the legs pumping,
Yep.
look for a crease. Godspeed, young man. Appreciate you.
All right.